Anyhow, welcome to another SEO Dojo, training dojo, hangout. Today we got a few good people here. Well, they're all good people. Well, I guess unless you count me. How about Ann? Tell us what you've been up to this week and what you're interested in.
I'm doing right now, working on a local analysis of potential business in a 100-mile radius, and doing search, paid organic on about 7 different dealerships and collecting that information. I'm also working on dealing with social trolls. And I'm trying to figure out the code for creating a custom Facebook page. So anyone going to Facebook, anyone coming from Facebook to the website gets a special page that's designed just for our Facebook users. And I'm getting mixed messages. So it's a lot of troubleshooting right now.
Yeah. Integrating your site with Facebook can be a pain. When I was working for a pretty well-known agency, that was one of the things that I had to figure out. It's tough, but basically it's just an inline frame on Facebook is the best way to do it. Put your content on your site on Facebook is how I did it, found it to work best, because you're integrating content and all that other good stuff.
Got it.
Anybody else got a comment on that, or?
Agreed.
We all mum. Steve, you got nothing to say? That's hard to believe.
I agree with you a lot, dude.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. Or is it? I'll go with good to know.
Yeah, I'd go with or is it?
Anyhow. Yeah, Bill, what you been up to? It's always good to catch up with you.
Hey, Terry, it's good to see you. So the team I'm working with is coming up with SEO training materials. And one of the things they decided that they would include coworker linked to 200 Google ranking signals post. And yeah, I saw that and I said, no. So I sent a message saying, I'll write one.
Yeah, you write one and share it with us, Bill.
So
we'll link to it.
I told him it's going to take me a couple of days because I don't want to be embarrassed by what I write. And the lack of critical thinking that goes into some of the things people have written about ranking signals. Matt Cutts says Google doesn't use this, so they must. So here it's like, okay, so Matt Cutts is a spokesperson for Google. If he says they don't use something, it's not because he's trying to hide something. It's because they probably don't use it. So I'm going through the last 5 years of blog posts I've written and pulling out things I've written about and linking to those. And I've fleshed out about 35 or 40 of them. I think I'm going to end up with about 45 or 50.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be 200, but it's not going to be 200 bullshit ones.
Yeah, I think that when that gets done, it should be boiled down like 200 signals. Well, yeah, 200 signals, but how many really matter? How many actually move the needle? Just because they use some doesn't, it could not move the needle enough. If there's 200 factors, right? A lot of them, there's one main factor and there's signals that verify the main ranking factor.
I was looking at things like age of domain as a ranking signal. And the justification for including that is that Matt Cutts did a video 5 years ago talking about how Google might tell the age of domains. So therefore, it's something they care about. So it's a ranking signal.
Well, yeah, the thing is that so many things are now indirect, increasingly so. So, yeah, age of domain is definitely a factor. If your domain is 5 days old and has 100,000 inbound links, okay, that's a flag, that's a factor.
So if
but it's not something to list as a ranking factor.
If it depends.
I disagree on that, Doc. Go ahead.
If you have a way of explaining how it might be something that Google looks at,
yeah,
like they did come out with a patent involving something they call document inception dates, where they say something like the first time Google crawls your website or the first time they see it referred to on another website is when they recognize your website as existing.
Yeah.
Here's some age from that, and then they may start keeping track of all the links to your website and when they appear to determine a rate of linkage to your website, and that's important too.
Like for me, right, when Google became a registrar,
yeah,
every bit of information in a registry record became important. And there was a point where when you hit it, it actually affected your rankings. I made that mistake of when they became a registrar, I decided to hide a bunch of mine, which lasted about, I think, 3 months. And then I made them all public again because, yeah, it affected the rankings for sure. So,
So there was a patent that came out in the early 2000s called information retrieval based on historic data. And one of the things it said was that they might look at the length of domain registration. And because spammers would likely only register a domain for 1 year. So anything that's registered for more than 1 year is likely not a spammer. So GoDaddy saw that and advertised 10-year registrations to help your SEO. And Matt Cutts came out with that video the very next day that says, just because we have a patent on something doesn't mean we use it. And most people who buy domains buy for 1 year and have their card filed with the registrar so that can be
automated.
So if you've registered for 1 year, that doesn't mean you're a spammer, and it's not something that Google's going to penalize you for.
But it could be best practice.
It could be a signal that is useful,
right?
Showing intent of the domain owner
to have their domain registered.
No, as to what they plan. A spammer does things differently than someone who plans to make it a business.
So a spammer might buy a domain and then create 30 or 40 or 300 or 400 subdomains on that domain. And there was a damn spam and statistics paper from Microsoft that pointed out that people in some countries were doing that. You know, that's more like we're going to save money by not spending on domains and not spending on registration length. That's more of a signal that is something a spammer would do.
Interesting. Okay, we'll come back and talk to Bill again, I'm sure. He'll give us impart some words of wisdom. Next, we have the famous Dave Davies, and not the guy from the Hollies. And for those who are wondering who the Hollies are, you're probably under 30 years old.
I hear you're going to be replacing me next week on the podcast there, Terry.
Yes, I am. We're going to be talking about podcasting and stuff, and you know how I've been making a fool of myself for over 10 years.
I was joking to Jim. I'm like, so really, you can just do the intro and then just let Terry just go, just go, just wind him up and set him off, and he'll do a great job. And yeah, I think he's planning on just taking a nap, just letting you cover the show.
Yeah, I got a few things to talk about, so it'd be interesting.
Really?
Perfect.
And you're going to a conference?
Yeah, I'm going to be speaking down at Rocks Digital down in Dallas, so that should be fun on content and machine learning. So it'll be good.
Oh, you're doing AI now too?
Well, more from I'm interested in machine learning, but I certainly wouldn't proclaim to be any kind of expert in the field. But I'm actually working on some tools and stuff to help use AI to figure out maximizing your odds of meeting user intent. Like when you're actually trying to hit user intent, how do you figure out which content is actually going to do that? And you're not just jamming content on your site because, I don't know, you got a shotgun and you feel like, pointing it at your page and hoping you hit something.
Yeah. We had a long talk about machine learning and AI on the Bogus Adventure with Bill. How they don't really differentiate the two and that kind of thing.
I know that consistently drives me nuts, but they're getting blurry, so I get it. I get now that it's like, okay, when you get unsupervised machine learning, it can look a lot like artificial intelligence, right? So, the line's getting pretty crazy.
I made a mistake. Everybody's letting me know it's the Kinks, not the Hollies. I get those two mixed up all the time because they're brothers.
And Bill, I got to thank you for giving me that blast to the past and mentioning probably one of the first patents I ever read, and definitely my favorite. I had that thing highlighted and sitting on my desk for like 5 years, and I'd peruse it every now and then, the information retrieval based on historical data. It was just a classic, and I think it lasted a long time in its relevance. And just as soon as you mentioned it, I was like, oh yeah, right, that one.
It was as if you got some of the best search engineers in the world and had them exchange notes on bar naps some night, late night at the local bar. How else can we tell that a site is spamming or stale?
Yeah.
They just came up with a huge list. And they're all good things. They all spawned other patents, continuation patents that were on similar subjects, but they weren't so over-inclusive of everything. That patent covered all the things. It had too much.
Yeah, and that's what made it great. I mean, it was, as you know, it was a long, because it was like one of the first patents I'd read and I was trying to wrap my brain around the language of it. It was a slog to try and get through that. And wrap. I mean, you'd read tons of patents at the time, so I'm sure you just blasted through it and you're highlighting a few things going, oh yeah, that's kind of good. Oh yeah, Link's age, right? Whatever you're looking at there. But yeah, that took me like 3 days of pretty steady reading just to get through that one. But there we are.
Okay, then. Speaking of Doc, I was listening to a little bit of one of his new videos with Steve on Mentor. I forget the name, but Doc introduced it anyhow. This is
Mentors on Tap.
That's well, go ahead. What you been up to besides that?
Oh. Well, actually, yesterday and part of the day before yesterday, I've just been doing non-SEO stuff. I've got my book that I finished writing back at the beginning of 2016. I'm finally getting off my butt and getting ready to publish it, and trying to come up with about 50 illustrations. And talking to illustrators, I was getting quotes of up to like $4,500, which gave me heart failure.
Yeah.
And I found a piece of software that will take an image and turn it into a sketch, and you can adjust it any way you want to get any degree of roughness or line art type. And so I got about half of them done yesterday. So I'm really tickled with that. That's what I've been doing. I want to get that thing up and for sale.
Yep.
So I can retire.
Oh yeah.
Hey, that $1.18 a month is going to come in mighty handy.
One of my brothers is a self-published author. It's actually pretty good, but that's a tough way to make a living, man. He does not make a living with it. So.
No.
Okay, Steve, Bannon. I think that's on you.
Oh yeah. I made the wonderful mistake of changing a theme this morning, and so that's what.
Oh.
That's what I'm doing today and tomorrow and the next.
Of course, you had a backup, right? So
it's funny because it's not me.
Yeah, right.
I tend to just roll it back and forget it.
Exactly.
I do recommend WP Engine for these kind of things, I think.
That's exactly right. Thank God for that. I see Dave with his WP Engine mug.
Yeah, well,
I had one too until it broke.
It actually worked, but this is the second time I've changed themes, and it's just I'm just gonna have to go through it post by post and just change the HTML tags so that there's some consistency.
I don't know about the rest of you, but this is one reason why I almost never change things on my website, even though it definitely needs an update. Just the pain of doing that is just too much to contemplate.
Hear ya. For sure. I only do it when I'm getting paid. That's it. I don't do it because I like doing it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it for you, Steve?
Yeah, that's it for me. That's all I'll be doing.
Okay. Well, good luck with that. I'm glad it's you and not me. Okay, Mr. Plunkett, what's new with you?
Lots of local, lots of WordPress issues, lots of interesting thing in Google search, lots of spam patterns, lots of brands mixed up with other brands in the same verticals with similar names that I'm going to have to differentiate. Yeah, that's pretty much what's going on.
Well, again, I'll just say I'm glad that's you and not me.
Well, it's like I said, WP Engine is your friend, and friend, and dev to staging to production is your friend. Yeah, those kind of things.
What are you looking at local wise?
Let's see, multi-tiered ORM for a, how do I say this? A healthcare entity, healthcare facilities provider that has 100+ facilities across multiple states that have wonderful reviews and
That's a good start.
lots of disinformation in their industry and lots of issues with Google. And when one facility buys multiple other facilities, how do you join those together in the same things, in the same entity? And using bulk upload for Google My Business still does not work for over 49 locations. We go on and on and on.
Okay. Like I said, good luck with that too. Not anytime it's multiple and it's Google, I just try and look for someone who's better at it than me, because it's usually cheaper to outsource that kind of work. Okay, Jim, how you doing? What you up to?
Well, actually, some of what I'm working on sounds a lot like what Steve just talked about, except maybe smaller in scale. I don't have any clients that are spread across many states with hundreds of locations. I must confess. I've been doing a lot with ORM using a tool that I just switched us over to from a previous one. In fact, I'd ask Steve P. Do you use a specific tool for that, or do you just do some kind of custom approach?
Specifically, give me for like monitoring or what?
Yeah, or for soliciting reviews and so forth, or checking for promoter score type metrics, or.
Well, I think it depends on where you're funneling your customers from. Are you funneling directly through Google My Business, directions, phone calls, actions upon the actual local listing? Is that what your metrics are for your clients, or?
Yeah. So in this case, for actual, we're looking for reviews, and we're doing almost all email-based outreach to them. So, well,
okay,
you work with what you've got, right?
Okay, so right, but so your thing is to get more reviews for your clients, right? That's kind of the purpose of what you're doing. But what happens when you put in the client's name plus their brand name, and add the word reviews and complaints on either end of both of those?
I didn't hear the last part of what you said. And
okay,
what?
So let's say we have brand name and product name, right? Okay. So you're working for a client. That's the brand name. Yeah. What happens when you put in brand name reviews, brand complaints, brand name ratings? Okay, those three: reviews, complaints, and ratings. Okay. Also, the word information. Add that fourth one in because that's an interesting qualifier of people that are on the undecided fence in the buying cycle. So you've got those four. Same thing. Now apply the product name with those four. Apply the brand name and the product name with those four. Right, that gives you enough metrics to go with. But the other question is, then we go to mobile first. Are your clients? Is your brand? Does it connect with the clients? Are they B2B or B2C?
These are all B2C healthcare providers.
Okay, B2C. Okay, so the clients of your client, or your client is a B2C healthcare provider?
My clients are mostly B2C healthcare providers, or elder care providers.
Oh God, we're doing the same stuff.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
I did a branded report from SEM Rush this week. It describes exactly what he talked about as far as the searches. It's really good for that. Also, I found I think somewhere in their tools, you would be able to figure out the reviews as well. And the good thing with them, you could put it all into one report.
I probably started out with the wrong question. What I really meant was in terms of trying to garner more Google reviews for your clients, which is part of ORM, I realize. I wondered if you had any specific approaches.
I would talk to Darren. He would have a strategy for that for sure.
I use them.
Look on his blog, you'll find something.
Yeah.
I use something called Podium, and I have all of the people that work here. I create accounts for them, and then after there's been a transaction, it's solicitation of reviews. Technically, you can't do it with Yelp, but everything else, and you can throttle between different ones, so you can add all of the review sites. And then it puts the person down a decision tree. Do you have an account here? No. Do you have an account here? No. Do you have an account here? And it works really great because it's all via mobile phone. So it's very fast, very easy to get those. I mean, I went from when I started 3 years ago with like 89 reviews in Google, we have 1,600 now.
Nicely done.
It works.
Wow.
I'll look at that.
I want to drop a link to that in the notes because I'm probably going to add.
Sure.
And Steve also dropped. Is it okay to tell that one, Steve?
Yeah, go for it, dude. That's one of what Tim. Review trackers is a way to get people to be able to give a quick review. Stars. It gives them the satisfaction of putting the review, because sometimes you don't want people that are about to give you a good review to read all your bad reviews. So the problem that you're thinking about, especially in your industry, is we're sending them to a page that has a 2.3 Google rating, and the first 4 of those are 1 stars. So they're about to go leave their rating, and we're telling them in a certain way, just, hey, go check this out, not managing and then putting them directly in the form. You understand what I'm saying?
I do. That's excellent.
The other thing is when you use this, they do it based on a star system. So then you can then at some point capture those stars and stick them on your website in like a testimonials widget or something like that.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So people can see that part. And if you do it right schematically with Schema, then that can also show up as a snippet under your Google listing in your meta description area. So that's kind of a way to get around that. Yelp is pretty easy, and Yelp pretty much, yes, exactly. Yelp it's just like, hey, just you guys used to remember Ripoff Report, right? Mm-hmm. And you're welcome, by the way. There's a couple of those, 4 of them. You know which 4 I'm talking about that I got rid of. So we know how that works, because basically Yelp is kind of the same kind of extortion when they hold listings and control and reviews, and then those reviews have been shown to be falsified. So at this point, you can do that by basically looking at the way that Yelp rehandles their URLs to have the same review 3 times, your same listing 3 times. Do several searches for that. Use spam report listed from or removed from your location name and your brand name. Make sense? Yeah. So that's how you get Yelp out of the way. Make sure you fill it out. As far as the services that the facility provides, make sure you are putting those into Google+. Also, if you have events at the facility, make sure you're putting those into Google My Business events. There's a whole separate web page thing that you can do with Google My Business now. Mm-hmm. I would suggest you do that. Any of the offers, any of the things, if you have specific services that are priced at a specific rate, then you can put like booking for that. You know, if I'm looking for 2 days of rehab, how much does that cost to book? You know what I mean? But then again, you got what kind of rehab, what level of rehab, and so there's a whole different level of how that works. That's just the start of it. Does that help?
That's where we'll leave her for now, too.
I mean, hey, last question.
You can go all day. I was waiting for just the spot to jump.
Hey, Steve,
yes,
have you had any success in actually improving the Yelp score? Because we just signed up for Yelp Wi-Fi, which what? That face, like, oh. The Yelp Wi-Fi it allows us to be able to communicate with people. So when they get on their Wi-Fi, we get their information. And then we send them, hey, we're getting new offers. I'm building a whole curriculum around Yelp right now. And I'm trying, we have a 1.2 on Yelp. We have a 4.7, 4.8, really good ratings everywhere else. So to me, it actually looks like Yelp is doing something wrong.
No, all your competitors are putting up negative reviews, probably.
There's
so cheap, it's a joke.
So you have paid Yelp the monthly amount for where you can respond to reviews that are on your listing, correct?
It's a piece of hardware that says, Yelp, free Wi-Fi from Yelp. And okay. Then when somebody, yeah.
When they're in the dealership.
Okay, no, wait. All right. So hang on a second. There's two concepts here. You're not going to like where this is going because I just figured out how they got you. Okay.
Oh, no.
The first thing is, do you have a paid Yelp account? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. So you control your review, and they're not showing ads for your competitors on your listing, correct?
Correct.
You pay for them, and you're able to respond to people's reviews on Yelps. Okay.
Correct.
Cool. Yeah, I thought if you didn't have that and you did have the Wi-Fi, then this was really going to be screwy, but thank God you got both. Okay. Yes. So the way you need to do that is you need to have a phone or a computer that stays logged in, doesn't go to sleep, on that Yelp Wi-Fi that's active at the business to where it shows that your listing is active at the business, right? And you leave that open where people can log in on your review to where they can log in on their account, and you have a kiosk when they walk in to where they can leave you a Yelp review right there at the store on Yelp Wi-Fi. Okay? So at this point, when people come in, they want to give you a review. They're normally going to give you a better review as they come in while they're waiting to...
They're using the app.
Okay, if they're using the app, then the Wi-Fi does really nothing other than the fact that they got free.
Well, right, but I can also solicit reviews from these people. So I'm able to actually, through the Yelp a business back end, I can send an email or or a text message through their app that says, hey, this month we're running a free car wash. So come in this month and get this offer when you check in 3 times. So I'm trying to make them become Yelpers is what it feels like to me.
It sounds like you've got a CRM, and basically the information is clients. And here's where I think that's problematic. Are all your clients all Yelp users?
No.
Okay, what's the percentage of clients that you have that are Yelp users versus the ones that are not?
We do not have that data.
Okay, so at this point, if say the number of Yelp users that you have as clients, which is that would be what you would gather at this point, because this way you now know how successful your Yelp stuff is. Because if at the end of the month, for 3 successive months, your Yelp user is less than 15%, then you're focusing too much on that user. Does that make sense? That'd be
it does.
Test it out, and then everything else you can go into specifics and variables. But I think having that right there is just a quick, okay. If they're 3% of your users, then you're basically feeding your customers to Yelp, and that's all you do.
But that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to get more of our loyal customers becoming Yelpers and using Yelp because they get free stuff. The more that they check in with the IP, the more that they check in at our location, the more they become an actual authoritative Yelper.
Yeah, that's one way to do it.
Well, hey, Terry, that's a positive coming from you.
I'm not a big believer in promoting other people's products. So
it sounds like it
doesn't make sense.
It sounds like you're sending people to your Facebook page when Facebook only uses ads. I agree with Terry.
Okay, so I guess it's my turn now.
Okay, sorry.
This week, Dave and I will be releasing SEO Dojo Radio. It's basically all the podcasts we've been making for over 10 years. There's about 240 now. It's basically one of the projects that I want to do in retirement. Make it basically into the best podcast site for SEO around. Probably run it all through an application as well. For those who aren't interested or haven't looked yet, the Dojo app is pretty good because when you're hearing all of the discussion, there's information that goes along with it. So in this case, all the links that got put into the comments here would be in the show notes, as well as I would talk to Bill after, get a few notes, and all the people who talk, that sort of thing. So that's kind of the setup. Looking for more shows to add. Be talking to Doug and Bill about what they're doing to Doc. And I don't know anyone else here who does a regular podcast. And I'll probably, no, almost in fact, there will be a new regulators. I don't know who's interested in doing it with me yet, but I got a few people who have said they'll become kind of irregular hosts. It won't be quite the same as the original one with Steve, myself, Dave, and for a while there we had Justin. It'll be more of all our buddies, basically. Hope to get Dave Davies on because he's always a trip.
You mean this time? You mean the Kinks guy, right?
Yeah. Well, we haven't bugged anybody for years now to come on a show, so now we can dust off the Rolex and start at it.
Rolex. Let's see. What was that again?
But one of the things I've kind of come across while building the site was we had all the information on Libsyn at one point, so I'm slowly stripping it off there and putting it into this. And what I've realized is during Panda and Penguin, Dave and I were doing weekly shows on for the regulators and Search Geeks, and not Search Geeks was bi-weekly, I believe, but we covered Panda as good as anybody. And on top of that, Panda and Penguin, and on top of that, Dave and I were doing nothing but forensic work for quite a while, which is why I think we stopped working together. We both got tired of looking at all those crappy sites reviewing. We both went our separate ways and started working on our own on different things. I started to do more development and less marketing. Dave stayed with the SEO. My love is always development, building things, creating. Yeah, so, and also this week I did some work with events. Now, this was pretty enlightening for me because I hear people talk about events schema, events with a S, by the way. And there is an event schema as well. What people don't realize is there is events and event schema, which is very confusing, especially when you're trying to implement. And now there's a new, I think to kind of straighten that out, they've had a new pending schema that is basically series. And that is so you can show past and future events on the same page without it breaking the rules of the event schema, which when I was testing, it didn't really pick up that I had broken some rules. It just mentioned that I had a couple warnings because I wasn't including pictures and people. But that was interesting because as soon as I looked at the new pending schema, you could see where that made that putting all your past and present events on one page doable, whereas before it wasn't, because the differentiation between events with an S and event was very little. In fact, it had me scratching my head wondering, what's the real difference here? I had to read the thing 3 times before I realized that they were basically the same thing, and you couldn't put past events in a scroller type deal. So, yeah, that's when I also come across there's so many different schemas that are associated to that as well. For people who are wondering how you handle canceled events, events that are done, all that stuff, especially with a calendar, if it's a calendar of events, I've seen that pose some real SEO problems for a site. And this schema would definitely fix all that, because built into the schema is how you cancel an event, how you show that it's in the past, etc. I'm really getting in. I'm planning on adding events to the radio thing, where I'll now starting announcing our events there as well as on the dojo stuff. It's all kind of loosely associated. Dave and I will always be partners in something. We're basically partners in crime, I believe. Anyhow, it's a crime we don't make any money. That's a real crime. Okay, so moving on. There was a few things in the news. We're almost done. It's almost 2 o'clock already. But there were a few news items that I thought were kind of neat. Let me see here. Just looking it up now. And of course, I have it all in Skype and it's not cooperating. There was a thing that came out this week where on the round table, or no, excuse me, Search Engine Land, where they said the Google local packs, the business categories were dynamic. And this is really, that's something new. Before it's pretty static. And you had kind of trouble ranking when someone you were competing with had not used the same category as you, and they had stretched that their business actually belonged in that category. It was a subcategory, but not a main category. That pretty much has changed. Someone, I don't know if it's in the article here. For those, I dropped it in the window here. You'll see that there's some pretty good tips here on how to work with it. But one thing that you should know is that when you look at a person's Google My Business page at their category, if you look at the source code, all their subcategories are listed afterwards. Just something I picked up. I forget where I read that, but it seemed like a good tip worth looking at. And of course, anybody have any comments on that, or just move on?
I was going to comment on your event and events thing. It looks like events might be, they don't really deprecate anything, but it looks like they're not really using it anymore.
Google uses it heavily. They're actually talking about increasing the use
of events with an S.
No, event. Events with an S isn't actually worth using because it's actually being replaced by the series thing.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's superseded by event, and if you look at their sample markup, you kind of see what that you need. Yeah, you need to do a bunch of them. Each one needs to be marked up separately, sort of.
Yeah, it doesn't work marking them up on the same page. It doesn't work the same. It doesn't work the way it should. That's why they come up with the new one. Because on a event page, it shouldn't be past due. And actually, you should be very careful about showing past events in an event list. Be very careful about that. What I plan to do is use the new schema and point not to the announcement, but to the finished event where that information will be in. It'll probably help with that. There'll probably be schema to do that because there's Creative Works. Is that it, Bill? That you can associate to the finished video and audio products from the event. There's also schema for that.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah.
That's how I plan to do it anyhow.
I joined the Schema community mailing list about a month ago, and it sends me lots of extra emails. There's a big discussion, sort of a fight, a battle royale over historical events, and they're talking about web pages that talk about things that happened in history many years ago. It's spawned over 100 emails. There's so many opinions and so much argument. It's actually kind of fun watching everybody argue about it.
But it's because when you read the actual implementation of it on the Schema site, it's gray, man. It doesn't really give you really good examples either. Like, I spent half a day just looking at it, scratching my head saying, okay, what do they really mean?
And that may be the benefit of joining a mailing list like that. So you can say, okay, this needs to be said. Events. What is it? What's going on here? There's no good examples.
There are none. I searched for events examples, and all I got was event examples, and they had mislabeled it as events.
So the beautiful thing about this mailing list is you have actual people from Google who work on Schema participating.
Oh,
Dan
really?
Buckley, who's the head of Schema, Ramanathan Guha, who sort of started off Schema at Google, and Richard Wallace. These are people who are involved in how Schema is shaped and how it changes and what the final product on the page is.
Bill, do you mind dropping the where you can subscribe to that list? Definitely something I'd be interested in.
Okay, yeah.
You drop it in the comments for me. You mind if I make that public?
No problem.
It's not a special club or anything. I mean, there's Googlers.
It is a special club, but
Oh, okay.
Sounds like it's
But they'll
inundate my mailbox.
Is what you're saying.
what's that?
I said it's a special club, but they'll even let people like me in.
Well, you know what W.C. Field said about that. Any club that would let you join isn't worth joining.
Well, any place you can get a free 100 emails a day has got to be a bargain, huh?
Oh, yeah.
InundateMyMailbox.com.
For the digest. I hope they have a digest.
I'll sign up for all my email accounts on that one.
Oh, yeah. SpamMeVeryMuch.com.
There's
It's funny.
It's a W3 Orange one. Cool.
right. So you have to join W3 org, which isn't really too
Probably
difficult.
already a member.
Yeah.
Funny, Schema is a topic which is really interesting conceptually, but it's very tedious when you actually get into it and try to do things.
It makes you think. It makes you think about what you're doing on the web page. That's what I like about it. And I think that's why a lot of SEOs pass. Too much work. You can't do that.
It's machine readable. So if you have the information on your web page in HTML, you've got to figure out a way to get it out precisely and quickly in as organized a manner as possible. And that can be some work.
Yep.
What are you guys using? Are you using microdata or JSON LD most of the time?
JSON LD.
Microdata makes it really easy for a web designer to come along and help clean up your HTML for you by getting rid of all these item prop things and crap like that.
Yeah, I go for
microdata uses the item props and all that.
I know, but you have some people who may help you. And they may help you by getting rid of stuff that they don't need.
I believe.
Right.
I've experienced that.
Oh, so you're saying you're using the JSON LD?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just use the markup because Google has stated that they only really take note of what is also on the page and visible to the user. They're going to weight that heavier. So that's why I use that.
They've expressed a preference for JSON LD.
It also puts it, had a preference for JSON LD.
Yeah, they've stated that. There's a structured data guidelines page from Google, and they say that there are 3 different ways that you can put markup on a page, and one of those is JSON LD, and they've got in parentheses next to it, recommended. So JSON's the recommended form.
But they also say if the information is not on the page, they're not going to trust it as much.
That is something they say in that page too. But if the information, is in the JSON and it's in the HTML, you can do that. You can have them in both places.
So it may be a case of belt and suspenders is appropriate.
All
For
right.
pulling up your pants, you know, is like a similar thing. In other words, have both, it can't hurt you, correct?
It's like having two separate channels. Right.
Yeah. Right. And so I don't know if Jason LD does this, but when you're adding in information in a meta tag, you can do that in the with the microdata markup. You know, missing information that's not in the HTML, and you add it in, and I forget what the syntax is, but it's a meta piece of metadata that you can add right in.
Yeah, but if I use the metadata tag, I try and put the markup so it's also displayed to the user. Because it's not just that they want it in the page, they want it displayed to the user, correct, Bill?
You're muted, Bill.
Well, most of the time, yeah, I'm just muted myself and unmuted myself to respond.
Okay.
My PC was making lots of noise, so I was trying to mute that.
I think
Terry, yes, sometimes you don't want to have the information that's on the page in the markup and vice versa. There was something that Google introduced in 2013 they called an invisible same as, which is when you use a same as link with a link HTML element as opposed to an anchor HTML element.
Right.
I used that when I had a client with the same name as a Middle Eastern paramilitary group. They changed their name, but on the website they hadn't changed older pages on their site, blog pages and so on. So they had the old name on those pages, and their name was ISIS.
Oh.
So they didn't want to be known as ISIS. They were a company that was started by Verizon, AT&T, and Sprint, and they were on just about every Android. The right kind was on just about every Android phone in the country, in the U.S. when they first came out. And they ended up having this military group come out. They said, we've got to change our name. They did. But they had those web pages with their name on them. And they said, how do we get around this? And I suggested, based on this 2013 Google I/O presentation, that they use something called an invisible same as, where every time the old name showed up, they would use a link HTML tag next to it, which has the same as link to the Wikipedia page, which said that they were once ISIS and had changed their name.
Oh, good idea.
And that seemed to be something that people at Google didn't mind, even though it didn't say in the HTML of the page that you were linking to that Wikipedia page. In that instance, it was okay. But yeah, if you do a JSON list with a bunch of your social sites, same as links to those, I would also make sure you have all those social sites linked to from your HTML on your page. Because why hide it?
that's how you get the social icons to pop on Knowledge Panel, by the
Right.
way. Just in case anybody didn't know.
Okay, well, that's been an hour, so I don't know. I guess we'll end on that note. Got a whole hour of mostly talk about SEO. Now that may be a first.
That's a record.
It is for any of the shows we do, actually. Hopefully Dave will be back next week, and we'll see you then. Bye for now.
Perfect. See you next week.